Hey, checking in on my sim pit again. I'm thinking about making this crazy desk that goes behind me. I call it a double desk, where one part will slide out this way, and then I can slide the other part back. You can see that temporary crappy 2x4 desk there. That is just so I can use the computer at the moment. And it's so high behind me, of course, because... Let me see if I can twist this around. Because it's up off the ground with stairs. So the idea, and you can see under there my Alpha and Bravo flight controls. I'm going to have those on a sliding thing, and when you can see them back there, there's some actual mounting brackets from an actual airplane. I think one is a Cessna 210, and the other one I'm not sure. But they have the six-pack arrangement that I want for steam gauges for when I'm doing that instead of a glass cockpit. So that is what I'm going to be working on next.
Now this would be easier with store-bought lumber, but we have a whole bunch of less than ideal lumber. I had a piece in mind that we'd used for a shelf before. There's that one right there. There it is. It's a little wonky, but it's just for a desktop. I don't need it to be perfect. Just gonna cut it with that jigsaw right there, down to length to double it up. Looking for it to be 24 inches deep. We recently made these folding table / shelf things. They've been working pretty awesome. You can find the plans all over the internet. There you can get a feel for how long it is. If I'm doing joinery, I use my square and a marking knife to mark things, but I just did what my dad does for carpentry and marked 2 points. Measured it with a straight edge. Then I just double checked the width. So I am going to joint the edges to make them fit together better. I am going to need to trim it a little bit to make it 24 inches. And with the wonky edges, that's no bad thing. For some reason I decided to mime on camera, pretending I was playing video games here. Get that desk out of the way, or that table out of the way. Pull out this one. Here's your fourth wall breaking shot of my tripod for some reason. First I put some double-sided tape to hold the two boards together so that I could joint them directly. These aren't perfect boards, like I said, so there's a trick. You can joint them together, and they'll fit together even if it's not put on perfectly. Now listen to this. I only did the first and last jointing. You can hear how it only hits in a few places on the first pass, and then the entire thing gets shaved on the last pass. That's the way it's supposed to be. Because the irregularities in the surface. Almost as satisfying as one long shaving by hand. Here's where I'm making dowels. I decided to make my own dowels. Set the blade for 3/8 inch. Just use a piece of scrap wood. That's part of why I left them from Dowels. Scrap wood for it. I took that piece and made it to where it's 3/8 inch square. Use the table saw for it too. The table saw is more exact, but I'm not using an exact method to cut it. Here's the picture of the die that I use. It's the cheapo one off Amazon. I didn't want to pull the belt sander out that I usually use, so I just used this block plane to sharpen the end so it would go in there in the die easier. Stay hydrated, folks. And that drill bit is a special one that comes with the die, and it takes the square end. And I put it in larger holes first and drill it through because it's easier, kind of like using a router at a lower setting first before doing the final cut. And I didn't want to pull the bandsaw back out, so I did this by hand. Cutting them into 2-inch lengths because I wanted them to be 1 inch into each board.
Now, after all that time spent trying to avoid pulling the equipment out,
I ended up with 12 dowels, and I didn't want to sharpen 24 ends, little bitty ends, on something else, so I did pull this back out. Here's the nice dowel jig that we have. I don't have one of the fancy self-centering ones, so this one you have to make sure it's the right orientation. Which is why I kind of folded this up like a book, so I could keep a track of exactly the orientation. Though I ended up flipping them over later to make sure they were on the right side. I decided to do 4 groupings of 2. So I'm just marking 2 next to each other right here. And then I'll move to the other end and then 2 in the middle. This is how you use this jig. Still staying hydrated. Then I test fit them together before gluing them up. Spread everything out with my finger and clamped everything together overnight. Oh yeah, and I wiped the squeeze out down with the wet paper towel. So I didn't have to sand it off later. I'm not going to be sanding this again. And that's where I left the lens cap on, trying to get a better shot of that plane.
let's see how it went overnight. I did come in to drop off a few things, but I haven't actually looked at it yet. Now, I used all this crap to try and help it glue flat, but we'll see if that succeeded at all or not.
Turned out pretty good. And I don't know why I said I didn't sand. I haven't sanded yet. But I was only sanding the top.
Hand planer, and then sanded a bunch.
And I just talked over myself.
Maybe
And
right
again.
here too. This right here.
7 power plane. And here's the sanding. I probably should have had the top up instead of down. That bench was very, very flat. So I thought if I stuck it to the bench, it would keep it flat. But I should have had the flat side up. It was a little bit out of line, but it was all right. And I just sanded it to take off any edges. And here's the trimming that I knew I had to do for to 24 inches. Now we're getting into the finishing work. Because that sanding was kind of shaping work. It was taking off some edges from the planing. Here we go. I'm putting a nice rounded edge just on the front, which I'm actually leaning against right now. That was a 3/8 inch roundover bit in there. And you finally see me putting on the dust mask. I maybe should have done for a few of the other things, but I've got it. You don't see the big old wind dust filter right up behind me. And this I put on goggles even. And here I am putting on the surface, which is why it was not important to make the surface of it all nice and special, because I'm just putting this nice self-adhesive covering over it. And here I'm cutting out the holes that I made for cords and stuff.
Well, here it is. I just put it in. This isn't the cool double desk sliding thing. I've just been dealing with that crappy 2x4 desk for so long that I just wanted to use the top for now. I'll do the sliding thing next, and those guys are totally unusable right now because there's nothing on the wall to hold the board up. So that needs to be fixed, hopefully very soon, so I can inflate some.